Ambassador Lihana stepped into the massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime, her boots clicking against the smooth floor that seemed to shimmer with its own light. The sound echoed through the vast space, making her feel incredibly small. Around her, beings from across the galaxy sat in judgment, creatures so advanced they barely looked real. The architects towered above everyone else, their bodies made of living crystal that pulsed with energy. They had been around for millions of years, reshaping entire planets with just their thoughts. Next to them floated the Luminari, beings of pure energy who could harness the power of stars themselves. Their forms shifted and danced like living flames, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. In the shadows lurked the Void Walkers, ancient creatures who could bend space and time. Nobody knew how old they really were, but rumors said they had watched galaxies being born. When they moved, reality seemed to ripple around them like water. Hana felt their eyes on her, hundreds of alien gazes studying this small human who dared to stand before them. She had traveled here with one simple request. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Council. They needed protection from something terrible heading their way. The lead architect's voice boomed through the chamber, sounding like grinding stones mixed with wind chimes. So the little mammals from the third rock want to play with the big boys, it said, and the sound that followed could only be described as laughter, if mountains could laugh. Your species discovered fire, what, a few thousand years ago? Another architect chimed in. We were building Dyson spheres when your ancestors were still living in caves. A Luminari's voice crackled like electricity. I've seen your energy output. Human. What you call your greatest cities produce less power than our smallest outposts. You're still burning dead plants for energy. The chamber filled with sounds that might have been amusement from dozens of different species. Some clicked, others hummed, and a few made noises that human ears couldn't properly process. But the message was clear. They thought Earth was a joke. Hana stood straighter, refusing to be intimidated. We may be young, but we're not stupid. There's something coming that threatens all of us. The Scourge fleet has already consumed the Kepler system. They'll be in this sector within months. The laughter stopped. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle hum of the station's energy cores, a void. Walker spoke, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Scourge? Those biomechanical parasites? Child, we've been dealing with threats like that since before your son was born. They're different this time, Hana insisted. Our deep space monitors show over 300 ships. They're not just raiding, they're consuming everything. Planets, stars, entire systems, nothing's left behind. An architect leaned forward, its crystal face somehow managing to look condescending. Little human, you barely have ships that can leave your own solar system. How could you possibly understand the magnitude of galactic threats? You're primitive. Sensors are probably picking up space debris. We've been tracking them for 2 years, Hana said, her voice getting stronger. They destroyed the Centauri colonies in 6 hours. The Vega research stations went dark 3 months ago. They're heading straight for the core systems. A Luminari pulsed brighter. Even if this threat exists, what makes you think your primitive world deserves our protection? You can't even achieve faster-than-light travel without our technology. Your weapons are chemical rockets and nuclear bombs. Stone Age tools. The council chamber erupted in what passed for discussion among these beings. Hana caught fragments. Waste of time, barely evolved. Come back when they discover antimatter. The lead architect raised one massive crystal arm, and silence fell instantly. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding Earth's application for membership and protection. Hana held her breath. Denied. Unanimously. The word hit her like a physical blow. Return when your species has developed actual technology. Perhaps in 1,000 years you might be ready for children's table. More laughter filled the chamber. Hana felt her face burning with anger and humiliation, but she kept her voice steady. You're making a mistake. When the Scourge comes, Earth won't forget who stood with us and who turned their backs. Oh, how terrifying, an architect said mockingly. The primitive humans are threatening us with their chemical rockets. As Hana turned to leave, she heard one final comment that made her blood boil. At least when the Scourge reaches their system, it'll be over quickly. Those poor creatures won't suffer long. The chamber doors sealed behind her with a sound like thunder. Hana stood alone in the corridor, her hands shaking with rage. They had no idea what humanity was capable of. None of them did. But they were about to find out. 3 months had passed since the humiliating rejection at the Galactic Council. Earth's long-range sensors had been tracking the approaching nightmare every single day. The Scourge fleet moved like a cancer through space, leaving nothing but empty void where star systems used to be. Admiral Park Ji-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the edge of their solar system, the place where everything they had ever known might come to an end. His crew worked quietly at their stations, but he could feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew what was coming. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Kang Minji from the sensor station, her voice tight with controlled fear. "They're here." The space around Pluto suddenly erupted with distortions as ships began dropping out of hyperspace. Not just a few ships, hundreds of them. The Scourge fleet was even larger than their worst estimates. These weren't normal ships. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, with hulls that pulsed like living tissue. Some were the size of city blocks, others stretched for kilometers. Their surfaces were covered in what looked like veins and arteries, pumping some kind of fluid through transparent tubes. Biomechanical tentacles writhed from their sides, and strange organic weapons protruded from their hulls like tumors. 317 ships confirmed, Minji reported, her hands shaking slightly as she worked her controls. "Mass readings are... Admiral, some of these things are bigger than our space stations." The lead Scourge vessel, a massive cathedral-sized horror covered in pulsing flesh and metal spikes, began broadcasting. The message came through in dozens of languages, including perfect English that somehow sounded wet and diseased. "Inhabitants of the third planet," the voice oozed through, their speakers like poisoned honey. "You have been chosen for consumption. Your biological matter will feed our growth. Your technology will be absorbed into our collective. You may surrender now and experience quick dissolution, or resist and endure prolonged agony as we harvest. You, piece by piece, you have one of your time periods called hours to decide." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronics. Park Ji-ho looked around at his crew, young men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They stared back at him, waiting for orders. "Lieutenant Song," the Admiral called to his communications officer, "open a channel to whole Scourge vessels. Channel open, sir." Park Ji-ho straightened his uniform and spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Admiral Park Ji-ho of the United Earth Space Force. We received your message." He paused, allowing a small smile to cross his face. "Our answer is no." He nodded to Lieutenant Song, who cut the transmission. Then Park turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Kim, send the activation code to all mining stations in the asteroid belt." "Code sent, Admiral. All stations confirming receipt." For the past 3 years, while the galaxy laughed at Earth's primitive technology, humanity had been busy. What looked like simple mining equipment scattered throughout the asteroid belt was actually something far more dangerous. Hidden rail, gun batteries powered by fusion reactors, and camouflage to look like ordinary excavation gear. The Scourge fleet began moving toward Earth, their bioships pulsing with anticipation. They had done this 1,000 times before. Primitive species always tried to fight at first, but it never mattered. Their energy shields could deflect lasers, their bioarmor could absorb plasma, and their regenerative systems could repair almost any damage. But they had never fought humans before. "All stations report ready, Admiral," Kim announced. "Fire," Park Ji-ho said quietly. The asteroid belt erupted in light. Hundreds of railguns fired simultaneously, launching metal projectiles. At incredible speeds, these weren't energy weapons that could be deflected. They were chunks of dense metal moving at 20% the speed of light, carrying kinetic energy that could punch through a planet. The Scourge had no idea what hit them. Their bioarmor, designed to absorb energy attacks, might as well have been tissue paper. The first salvo tore through their lead ships like bullets through soap bubbles. Massive vessels that had survived battles against energy weapons for centuries simply disintegrated as raw physics met alien flesh and metal. Explosions bloomed across the enemy formation as ship after ship died in brilliant flashes of light. The beautiful, terrible dance of destruction painted the darkness with fire and debris. Direct hits on 47 enemy vessels, Kim reported, his voice filled with amazement. They're breaking apart, Admiral. Complete structural failure on all targets. The surviving Scourge ships slowed their advance, clearly confused. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. These primitives were using weapons that didn't even register on their sensors until impact. Park Ji-ho watched the destruction with grim satisfaction, then turned to Lieutenant Song. Open a general broadcast to the entire galaxy. Make sure everyone can hear this. Channel open to all frequencies, Admiral. Park Ji-ho looked out at the burning remains of humanity's enemies and spoke calmly into the microphone. This is Earth. We tried to warn you. The Scourge fleet regrouped quickly after the devastating first strike. These biomechanical horrors had conquered thousands of worlds, and they learned fast. Within hours, they had adapted their formations to minimize damage from the railgun attacks and began their assault on Earth's outer colonies. What they discovered defied everything they thought they knew about primitive species. The mining colony on Europa looked helpless, just a small collection of domes and industrial buildings on the ice moon's surface. When the Scourge ships approached, expecting easy prey, the entire settlement suddenly transformed. What looked like mining equipment unfolded into massive defense cannons. Storage buildings split open to reveal missile batteries. Even the residential domes sprouted weapon systems from hidden compartments. The colony's administrator, Han Young-soo, watched from the command center as Scourge bioships descended toward his home. "All civilians to battle stations," he announced, calmly over the intercom. "Remember your training." This wasn't unusual for humans. Every person who lived in space knew how to fight. Every miner could operate a gun turret. Every farmer doubled as a soldier. Every teacher could pilot a fighter craft. When you lived on the edge of the unknown, everyone had to be ready for anything. The Scourge ships opened fire with their organic weapons, expecting the colony to crumble. Instead, they found themselves facing coordinated defensive fire that would have impressed professional military forces. Fusion missiles streaked up from the surface, while energy cannons tracked the bioships with deadly precision. But the real surprise came when the colony's supply ships joined the fight. These vessels looked like ordinary cargo haulers, boxy, slow and harmless. But as the Scourge quickly learned, humans built everything with dual purposes in mind. The cargo ship Busan Trader suddenly deployed weapon pods from its hull. What had been disguised as storage compartments opened to reveal torpedo tubes and particle beam arrays. Captain Lee Ji-won smiled grimly as her merchant vessel lit up the enemy formation. "This is why we love human engineering," she muttered to her crew. A ship that can carry grain can also carry guided missiles. Throughout the solar system, the same pattern repeated. The Scourge expected to find helpless settlements, and instead encountered fortresses. Every asteroid mining station could deploy enough firepower to level a city. Every transport ship could transform into a gunboat in minutes. Every space habitat had been designed to double as a military base. The aliens began to understand something disturbing about humanity. These creatures prepared for war even during peacetime. They built their entire civilization around the assumption that someday someone would try to destroy them. Captain Kim Min-ho commanded the destroyer Seoul's Pride during the battle for the Jupiter system. His ship wasn't the biggest or the fastest in the human fleet, but it represented everything humanity had learned about warfare. Hit hard, take damage, and never give up. The Seoul's Pride found itself surrounded by 7 Scourge bioships, each one larger and more heavily armed. The enemy vessels closed in like predators, their organic weapons charging with sickly green light. "Sir, we're outnumbered 7-1, reported his tactical officer, Choi Sun-mi. "Recommend we fall back and wait for reinforcements." Min-ho studied the tactical display. "Negative. If we run, those ships will attack the civilian transports trying to evacuate Ganymede. We hold them here." The battle was brutal. The Seoul's Pride danced between the bioships, her weapons blazing. Human engineering showed its strength. When a Scourge plasma cannon melted through the forward armor, the ship's systems automatically rerouted power around the damage. When bioacid ate through the hull in 3 places, emergency bulkheads sealed the breaches, and the crew kept fighting. But 7 against 1 was impossible odds, even for humans. The Soul's pride took hit after hit. Hull breaches appeared faster. Then they could be sealed. Atmosphere vented into space through 17 different holes. The ship's armor was gone, her weapons were failing, and her reactor was showing dangerous instabilities. "Sir, reactor containment is failing," Sunmi reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We have maybe 2 minutes before total meltdown." Minho looked at his crew, brave men and women who had followed him into hell without question. Then he looked at the largest Scourge ship, the one that seemed to be coordinating the enemy attack. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the intercom. "It's been an honor serving with you. Sunmi, set collision course for the enemy flagship, maximum speed." The Soul's pride turned toward the massive bioship, her damaged engines roaring to life one last time. The Scourge vessel tried to move away, but it was too slow. Minho's destroyer slammed into the alien flagship at incredible speed, and then the reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the Jupiter system like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone, along with the captain and crew who had refused to let evil pass. Across the galaxy, alien sensors registered something that had never happened before in recorded history. Long-range telescopes and deep space monitors all detected the same impossible reading. The Scourge fleet, the unstoppable force that had devoured countless civilizations, was retreating from a single star system. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council stared at their instruments in disbelief. The crystalline architects, who had dismissed humans as primitive, watched their displays show Scourge ships fleeing Earth's solar system. "This is impossible," one architect whispered, its crystal form flickering with confusion. "The Scourge never retreat. They consume everything or die trying." But the evidence was undeniable. Humanity, the species they had laughed at just months before, had done what no other civilization had managed. They had made the galaxy's greatest threat turn and run. Dr. Cho Yuna sat in the deep space, monitoring, station hidden behind Earth's moon, staring at readings that shouldn't exist. Her instruments were detecting massive energy signatures emerging from the shadow of Earth itself, power levels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built before. "This can't be right," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. Park Hyunwoo, who was frantically checking his own equipment. "These energy readings, they're off the charts. It's like someone just turned on a dozen artificial suns." Hyunwoo looked up from his console, his face pale. "Yuna, I'm reading gravitational distortions too. Something huge is moving out there. Multiple somethings." For the past 5 years, while the galaxy had dismissed Earth as a backwater planet, full of primitives, humanity had been working in absolute secrecy. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden construction facilities had been building something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Scourge fleet had regrouped. After their initial defeats, calling in reinforcements from across their conquered territories, over 800 bioships now gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system, preparing for one final devastating assault. They had learned to respect human weapons, but they still believed numbers would win the day. They were about to discover how wrong they could be. "Contact from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Bae Soo-jin from the communication station. "All monitoring stations are to maintain radio silence and observe only. Something big is about to happen." The space around Earth began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as massive shapes began to emerge from what had appeared to be empty space. The first ship to decloak was a monster. The UES Nemesis stretched over a kilometer in length, her hull made from matter so dense it seemed to drink in light. She wasn't built, she was forged, compressed from the heart of dead stars until her armor could withstand the pressure inside a black hole. But the Nemesis wasn't alone. One by one, her sister ships flickered into existence. The UES Titan, the UES Colossus, the UES Devastator. 12 dreadnoughts in total, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and controlled insanity. "My God," Yuna breathed, watching her. Instruments go crazy as the ships fully materialized. They're not just ships, they're weapons of physics itself. The Dreadnoughts hung in space like sleeping giants, their hulls pulsing with energy from the artificial black holes contained in their cores. Humanity had taken the most dangerous forces in the universe and harnessed them for war. Each ship carried a miniature black hole in magnetic bottles, using its incredible gravity as both power source and weapon. Admiral Shin Taiho stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, looking out at the Scourge fleet gathering for their attack. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, the day when humanity would stop hiding and show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. "All ships report ready, Admiral," called his tactical officer, Commander Yu Jion. "Gravitational. Weapons are charged and locked on target. And the galaxy is watching," added Communications Officer Kim Dong-yeon. "Every major civilization has sensors pointed at us right now." Taiho nodded. The Galactic Council that had rejected Earth's membership was about to get a lesson in humility. Every species that had laughed at human technology was watching through long-range telescopes and deep space monitors. The Scourge fleet began their final charge, 800 bioships accelerating toward Earth with murderous intent. They had conquered galaxies with those numbers. They had devoured entire star systems. No force in the known universe had ever stood against them successfully. "Sir, enemy fleet is entering optimal firing range," Jion reported. Admiral Taiho looked out at the approaching swarm of alien death, then spoke calmly into his headset. "All ships, this is Nemesis Actual. You may fire when ready." The Dreadnoughts opened fire and physics screamed. These weren't energy weapons that could be deflected or absorbed. The gravitational cannons created focused beams of space-time distortion, tearing holes in reality itself. Where the beams touched Scourge ships, matter simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, erased. The Hawking radiation projectors were even worse. They fired concentrated streams of the same energy that black holes emit, unraveling matter at the quantum level. Scourge bioships that had survived battles against energy weapons for centuries simply came apart as their atoms forgot how to hold together. "Direct hits across the enemy formation," Jion announced, her voice filled with amazement. "Sir, we're not just destroying them, we're deleting them from existence." The Scourge fleet, for the first time in their species history, experienced true terror. Their bioships tried to scatter, but the human weapons followed them across space-time itself. Ships that had seemed invincible just moments before vanished in flashes of impossible light. On the bridge of the lead Scourge vessel, alien minds that had conquered thousands of worlds struggled to understand what they were seeing. Their sensors couldn't even properly detect the human weapons until they hit. Their shields, designed to stop energy attacks, were useless against weapons that attacked the fabric of reality. "Retreat," the Scourge commander gurgled through its biomechanical translator. "All ships retreat immediately. These creatures have weaponized the universe itself." But it was too late. The human Dreadnoughts moved through space like predators, their black hole drives allowing them to manipulate gravity as easily as walking. They appeared behind fleeing Scourge ships, emerged from the shadows between stars, materialized from dimensions the aliens didn't even know existed. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the mighty Scourge fleet, the terror of the galaxy, was nothing but expanding clouds of particles and the echo of Hawking radiation. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, alien civilizations stared at their monitors in stunned silence. The species they had dismissed as primitive had just demonstrated technology that seemed like magic. Humanity hadn't just won a battle, they had redefined what was possible in warfare. Admiral Taiho opened a channel to broadcast across all frequencies. "This is the United Earth Space Force. The Scourge threat has been permanently eliminated. We are now accepting applications for diplomatic relations." The age of human dominance had begun. Commander Bei Taiyang stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by holographic displays showing every corner of the galaxy. Red dots marked Scourge-occupied worlds, hundreds of them scattered across dozens of star systems. For too long, these biomechanical parasites had fed on innocent civilizations, while the galaxy's so-called protectors did nothing. That was about to change. Operation Stellar Dawn is a go, Taeyang announced to the assembled fleet commanders. Every human dreadnought will jump simultaneously to predetermined targets. We end this threat once and for all, everywhere at once. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Humanity's 12 dreadnoughts would split up and attack every single Scourge stronghold at the same time. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. Just swift, absolute destruction delivered by ships that treated the laws of physics like gentle suggestions. Admiral Kim Soyeon nodded from her position, commanding the UES Titan. My ship will handle the Kepler sector, 3 occupied worlds, approximately 50 Scourge vessels. The Devastator will take the Vega system, added Admiral Lee Jae-hyun. Intelligence reports heavy Scourge presence there. They're using it as a breeding ground. One by one, each commander confirmed their targets. The Scourge had spread across the galaxy like a disease, but they had made one critical mistake. They had never faced an enemy that could be everywhere at once. Remember, Taeyang said, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's determination, these creatures have devoured entire civilizations. They've turned living worlds into feeding grounds. Show them the same mercy they've shown their victims. The dreadnoughts departed Earth space simultaneously, their black hole drives creating ripples in space-time that sensitive instruments across the galaxy detected. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council's emergency session was interrupted by urgent reports from their deep space sensors. Massive gravitational distortions detected in 12 different sectors, reported a panicked Luminari technician. The human ships, they're moving faster than our instruments can track. Meanwhile, on the Scourge-occupied world of New Harmony, the alien invaders continued their grisly work. What had once been a peaceful farming colony was now a nightmare. Landscape of biomechanical structures feeding on the planet's resources. Scourge ships hung in orbit like metallic vultures, their living hulls pulsing with stolen energy. The local Scourge commander never saw the UES Colossus arrive. One moment, empty space. The next, a kilometer-long ship materialized from nowhere, its weapons already charging. Captain Park Ji-soo looked down at the infected world through her ship's viewports. Sensors detect no human life signs, she reported grimly. The Scourge consumed everyone months ago. Then there's nothing left to save, replied her weapons officer, Lieutenant Choi Min-seok. Only justice to deliver. The Colossus opened fire with weapons that made previous human technology look primitive. Gravitational cannons created artificial black holes that pulled Scourge ships into crushing singularities. Matter compression. Beams turned enemy vessels into dense pellets the size of marbles. Quantum disruptors simply convinced the aliens' atoms to stop existing. The same scene played out across the galaxy. Human dreadnoughts appeared at every Scourge stronghold like angels of destruction. The aliens, who had never faced coordinated resistance, found themselves under attack everywhere at once by technology they couldn't understand or defend against. On the world of Centauri Prime, Admiral Yoon Ji-hoon watched through his ship's sensors as Scourge biofactories tried desperately to launch their vessels. They're trying to escape, observed his tactical officer. Not today, Ji-hoon replied coldly. He activated the Nemesis's gravity well generator, creating an artificial event horizon around the planet. The fleeing Scourge ships found themselves pulled inexorably toward the crushing singularity, their biomechanical screams cut short as they crossed the point of no return. What followed across the galaxy wasn't war in any traditional sense. War implied two sides fighting with some chance of victory for both. This was extermination, swift, efficient, and absolute. The Scourge, who had terrorized civilizations for millennia, discovered what it felt like to be helpless prey. The biomechanical horrors that had seemed unstoppable were reduced to their component atoms in minutes. Their living ships, designed to regenerate from almost any damage, simply couldn't adapt to weapons that attacked the fundamental forces of reality. Within 6 hours, it was over. Every Scourge vessel, every biofactory, every trace of their presence had been systematically erased from existence. The galaxy's greatest threat had been eliminated not through years of grinding warfare, but through overwhelming technological superiority, applied with surgical precision. Commander Taiyang stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last enemy signatures vanished from the galactic map. He opened a channel that would broadcast to every civilization across known space. "Attention, Galaxy," he said calmly. "This is Commander Bei Taiyang of the United Earth Space Force. The Scourge threat has been permanently eliminated. Everyone. Share of their ships has been destroyed. Every occupied world liberated. Any questions?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Not from the Galactic Council that had rejected Earth's membership, but from thousands of individual worlds. Desperate pleas for protection, requests for trade agreements, offers of alliance, all flooding Earth's communication networks from civilizations that suddenly realized they needed humanity far more than humanity needed them. Ambassador Li Hana, now carrying the title of Earth's first galactic ambassador, walked into the rebuilt council chambers on Nexus Prime. The same beings who had laughed at humanity's primitive technology now sat in stunned silence as she approached the speaking platform. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying none of the desperation it had held months before. "I stand before you again, but circumstances have changed. Earth no longer seeks membership in your council. Instead, we're here to inform you of new realities." The crystalline architects that had mocked her shifted uncomfortably. The energy beings that had dismissed human technology pulsed with nervous light. "6 months ago, we warned you about the Scourge threat," Hana continued. "You laughed. You called us primitive. You told us to return in 1,000 years when we had developed actual technology." She paused, letting that sink in. "We told you they were coming. Next time, listen when the humans offer to help." Across the galaxy, human dreadnoughts took their positions as the new guardians of civilized space. Their black hole drives created a network of protection that spanned star systems, their impossible weapons standing ready to defend against any threat that might emerge from the dark between stars. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter, illuminated not just by nuclear fusion, but by the undeniable truth that Earth had never been as helpless as it appeared. Humanity had simply been waiting for the right moment to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The age of human protection had begun, and the universe would never be the same again.